Ron Poliquin, DoverLawOffice.com. I'm here to talk to you about the cost of litigation and the decision to settle a case or take a case to trial. Now, as an attorney, and every attorney's heard this, you hear it sometimes, they say, it's about the principle, and in the real world, principle costs money. Every time a client usually comes in my office, they've been usually wronged in some way, and you want the other side to pay and restore you to where you were prior to the wrong. But in making these decisions, you have to decide how much that will actually cost you, because you want the other side to pay, but you're going to have to also pay, and that's what we're going to go through today. The old saying for attorneys is that be careful of a client that comes in and says, I don't care how much this costs, because that client never has any intention of paying you in the first place. The truth is, most people don't have the funds to litigate a case 100% or to the death. I like to use an example here to explain to you something. There's the famous Hulk Hogan versus Gawker lawsuit, which was about, which was an invasion of privacy lawsuit, which eventually led to Gawker's demise. Gawker was a website that essentially published tabloid type information from the private lives of public people. What people might not know is that that lawsuit was actually secretly funded by PayPal billionaire Peter Thiel. Now, Peter Thiel hated Gawker because he saw them as a website that ruined people's lives for no good reason. They had published some unflattering stories about him. So he secretly funded a team of lawyers to find and help victims of Gawker's coverage of them to mount cases against Gawker. Now, most people don't have a Peter Thiel, so therefore the settlement of a lawsuit might be in their best interest. And the timing of that settlement is going to depend on the various factors. But I just made up a little list here regarding the cost of litigation. Some expenses that you're going to see here are filing fees. It can range from $45 in Justice of the Peace Court to $400 filing fee in U.S. District Court. A lot of times you're going to need order medical records or other records. Sometimes that goes about 50 cents a page a lot of times, but that's going to vary. The cost of depositions. That's when you ask questions to the other side, or they ask questions of your party under oath with a court reporter. Sometimes it's recorded, audio, or visual. That's going to run from $200 to $900 each. Expert fees. In some cases where there's going to be some kind of allegation of negligence, you're going to have an expert, or if there's, a lot of times in these personal injury cases, a lot of times they're going to be, I find that's $3,000 to review the actual case, $3,000 to write a report, an expert report, and it could be $8,500 for trial testimony. That's just an example of a recent case I had where that was the listing of this doctor's fee agreement. If you need a private investigator, sometimes to interview people, sometimes to serve people, or sometimes to look up information, that could cost you $75 an hour. Attorney fees, I find this an area, a newer attorney is going to be $250 an hour. More experienced attorney can go up to $500 an hour in Delaware, and sometimes cases can be higher. So those are real costs. So who pays these costs? Almost any time the client is going to pay the costs. Meaning, it doesn't matter if it's going to be a contingency fee or an hourly fee. Contingency fees when you don't pay the attorney until the very end. They don't get paid till there's a settlement or there's some kind of trial and judgment. Versus an hourly fee where you're paying hourly, but the client almost always pays the costs. Where in some cases, the attorney might advance the costs, meaning pay them up front and you pay them later on, or in some cases, the client pays the cost as they come in. So So these are costs that are going to come out of you. Obviously, the earlier you settle the case or resolve a case, the less costs they're going to be. Where you have to decide, talk to your attorney about, hey, will this, how much will the cost be for this case, and will you end up getting less because of all the costs you paid in a case if it goes forward. And there's also consideration for settlement cost of time versus uncertainty. When you go to trial, no matter what court you're in, whether it's Justice of the Peace Court, Family Court, Chancery Court, U.S. District Court, you're rolling the dice if you let a judge decide. Okay? Meaning that you're taking out of the hands of the two parties, where if you settle the case, you're not going to get everything you want, but you're going to get something, versus the uncertainty of letting a judge make a decision or a jury make a decision. Ronald Reagan once said, I'd rather get 80% of what I want rather than go over the cliff with my flag flying. Therefore, if you're getting 80% of what, if somehow in settlement you're getting a lot of what you want, I would recommend that client accept the settlement rather than taking a risk further on, having more court costs that come forward with that, or attorney's fees. I had a recent case, family court case, where I fully expected this case to go to a hearing. We had prepared to go to a hearing. I was prepared to go to a hearing. We had costs of depositions. We had other various costs. I had put in a lot of time in it. And the case got settled right before trial. And the reason why it got settled, because my client, got 80% about what they wanted. So, yeah, they could have taken a risk and go to trial and gotten more, perhaps, or they could have gotten risk by taking less. So, I recommended in that case for that person to take the 80% and not take the risk. But I always say the best way to get a good settlement is litigate the case like it's going to trial. It's best to be prepared to go to trial and settle the case than just trying to settle the case and not being prepared to go to trial. I think that's the worst position you could be in. This is Ron Poliquin, DoverLawOffice.com. You have an obligation to yourself to know your rights and your options to make the best decision for you. I don't decide for my clients to go to trial or settle. They make the decision themselves based on the best information I have and the options they have. Thank you.